Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another weekly edition of Painting of the Week. I meant to make a video last weekend, and it just did not happen, so hopefully this week's video will make up for my brief hiatus last week. This week we're going to be looking at, I went back and forth on which painting we should look at this week, but I settled on this painting. We haven't looked at anything by Edvard Munch yet, and I know there have been some requests to look at The Scream, right, which is Munch's most famous painting, and I don't know. I feel like people maybe already know enough about that painting, or it's already so widely known that some of Munch's other works don't get the appreciation that they deserve. So we're not going to look at The Scream, but we're going to look at a very similar painting by Munch entitled Evening on Karl Johan. And really, Munch's painting, I mean, he wasn't just a one-trick pony here. I mean, his painting is nuanced in different ways. But the analysis that I'm going to be applying to this painting, Evening on the Karl Johan, can also be applied to pieces like The Scream, which are really key in the development of this movement known as Expressionism. Now, Munch was a Norwegian Symbolist painter. He considered himself a symbolist. But he was also probably the most important figure in the development of Expressionism. Well, maybe Van Gogh, but they were key in different aspects of developing Expressionism. And all these terms, Expressionism, Symbolism, Primitivism, Pointillism, Divisionism, are really all different sects of this kind of one larger movement that we refer to typically as post-Impressionism. We have the Impressionists like Monet, and then after Impressionism kind of goes out of style, we get these other artists who were heavily influenced by some of the aspects of Impressionism, but that interpret it in a different way. And that's where we get these, as I said, these different sects of art movements like Expressionism. And we talked about symbolism last week with Gauguin. Expressionism, as opposed to symbolism, looks at the conditions of the modern world as being more important than the reality of the modern world. And I'll explain what that means in just a minute. This painting, Evening on Karl Johan, was painted in 1892, so we're getting toward the end of the 19th century. It's oil on canvas. What it's depicting here is a crowd of people who are walking down a street. The sun it looks like just recently set based on the color of the sky, right? This is kind of past twilight, maybe into the early evening. And we have this very ghastly looking crowd. And if you think of The Scream, you can envision this kind of skeleton shape face that Munch likes to use when he's depicting people in his painting. So we have these skeleton-like figures, as I said, kind of, there's this macabre or ghastliness about them, right? Specifically in their eyes, their faces all appear to be somewhat contorted, like they're just skin and bones. And they all appear to be kind of walking away rather quickly from something. And the kind of expressionist interpretation of that is that they're all fleeing from death. They're running away from death. But the interesting thing in this painting is that there is one man separated from the crowd facing the other direction and actually walking in the opposite direction, walking toward perhaps death, or maybe he's just accepted his obvious fate. And this man kind of becomes the existential hero of this painting as a man who is isolated from society, yet in a way is more in tune with a true understanding of reality and also the inevitability of death. And also key here is this use of linear perspective, and we've talked a little bit about exactly what perspective is in different paintings, but if you look at the kind of the diagonals that define the edges of the street or the edge of the sidewalk and follow them all the way back into the background of the painting, kind of where those houses are on the right, the eye of the viewer is directed in that direction, and that seems to be the point of convergence of all the different linear or straight lines in this painting. And it's from that point, which we refer to as a vanishing point, that all of these people on the sidewalk appear to be fleeing from. And that area is, based on what we see here in terms of the coloration of the sky and the way lighting is used, is most likely the place where the sun is set. So if we think of the sun as representing life, the setting of the sun is, in a way, a symbolist way. And like I said, Munch considered himself a symbolist as well as an expressionist as we regard him today. If we think of the sun as this symbol of life, then the setting of the sun is a symbolist representation of death. And these people are fleeing that sunset, just as we flee from death. Except, as I said, for this one this one figure who appears to be accepting that. But this isolation of that one man who is more in tune with reality than the rest of society gets back to this expressionist idea of the conditions of modern life as being more important than the reality or the ordinary understanding of modern life. Munch believed that the modern world, particularly industrialization and urbanization, were causes of great anxiety in people, and that the city was in a way sort of threatening. And you can see that threatening aspect of urbanization in the faces of these people. Like I said, they look like skeletons, right? And he believed that these aspects of modern life, what our modern life had become, was a cause for an intensification of nervous stimuli. That modern life had become so industrialized and so urbanized that it was creating this anxiety that was almost unbearable. And we begin to see the world in sort of this new way where people like this, obviously we don't see people as these kind of ghostly skeletons, but in a way that our perception or our condition of life in the modern world had become such that reality was like this, that we really were plagued with anxiety, that we were plagued with the stress of this urbanization and this industrialization and the dark side of human nature that manifests itself in the city. And we begin to feel as if we're surrounded by these skeletons, right, that constitute society, and we feel isolated from that. And we see how color here and vision has been used in a way to express this anxiety, and that's where the word expressionism comes from. How is the artist using different techniques to express a particular emotion or to express a particular idea? It's a concept that is related to symbolism, where we're using typically non-mimetic use of color and other aspects to convey some sort of a symbolic representation of some sort of fact of reality or nature. But in this case, we're much more concerned with human expression and human emotion, and that's what Edvard Munch has endeavored to capture here.